Welcome back, everybody. We have a very special treat, and it's always so much fun when we can just bring on expert guests to share their wisdom with you. And today it's extra special because Dr. Moine is joining us. This being our virtual scripting training, he's the one that taught me this content. He's the originator of it and has been my mentor for now a little over 21 years. And I've done tens of millions of dollars in sales increases from what Dr. Moine has shared with me. And then I've taught that information to like all of you and thousands of students all over the world. And it's generated hundreds of millions of dollars in additional revenue. And so it's just great to have Dr. Moine with us today. So Dr. Moine, welcome to the webinar, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for some of you on the East Coast, and good evening for anyone who's tuning in other parts of the world. Wow, I have a very exciting presentation today. This is actually the first time I've shared any of this information on a webinar. I hope you can all see my screen. Eric is my #1 student. I've taught scripting to tens of thousands of people around the world. That's over a very long career because, folks, I started off before there was PowerPoint. I had to do my teaching in seminars for a while. I was traveling 6 days a week doing seminars, and I've scaled back greatly on that, and I primarily work now one-on-one with sales superstars and people who want to be sales superstars. Well, I know Eric is doing a great job on teaching you all sales scripting. As I mentioned, he's my #1 student. He's reaching lots of folks around the world. I'm going to share with you the step beyond scripting. As powerful as scripting is, and Eric's going to share with you probably a dozen or more techniques, very powerful techniques. I urge you to master them. It can have a tremendous impact on your income. The step beyond scripting of sales is the scripting of your life. Folks, this is one of the greatest breakthroughs in modern psychology. Scripts determine not just how much we sell, which you all realize now. The quality of your words determines the size of your income. But scripts also determine our entire lives. And I'm going to give you some insights into this process today. One of the reasons you're on this call is you want to change something in your life. Isn't that true? Say yes. And that's good. You are growth-oriented, unlike some people today who are watching bowling on television, or they're sleeping in extra late, or they're hungover. I have to congratulate you. You are working at improving your life. God bless you. Good for you. The world needs more people like all the folks on this webinar. One of the most powerful ways of doing this is by changing your life scripts. Let's go on to the next slide. Why knowing sales scripts is not enough to guarantee success. Take a few notes here, folks. Even if you have the best scripts in the world, your life scripts can prevent you from using your sales scripts. This is a really remarkable finding. I'm the guy, as Eric mentioned, I'm the person who turned scripting into a science. Probably from the very first times that human beings bartered, way back in caveman and cavewoman days. They worked on their scripts. They worked on how to say better ums and ahs and grunts, and once we developed words, how to use more persuasive words and sounds to get a better deal for your shells or your animal skins or spices. You know, folks, the whole world was developed around sales and trade. You look at ancient history. Remember the spice wars? That's people across the oceans. They developed civilizations based on trade. It's funny now that so many people are against it. That's a whole other webinar. Well, folks, something that amazes me is there are people who have studied scripting and they don't use their scripts. You can give them some of the best scripts in the world and they won't use them. The biggest assignment I ever had in my life, it's relatively early in my career, I got an assignment for a little over $2 million. I had to hire 9 people to help me do this. It was with a major bank, and I had a small assignment there, helping them to open up new checking accounts. And I studied the superstars who opened more checking accounts than anyone, figured out how they did it, wrote down their scripts, improved their scripts, and I came up with scripts they'd never thought of. That's one of my special gifts. Is I've studied Hollywood script writing and a lot of other linguistic techniques, and I'm very good at coming up with some original scripts. Well, we broke all the sales records in the checking accounts. So they wanted me to do certificates of deposit, and my assignment went from $15,000 for the first one. Now, certificates of deposit were very, very profitable, and that was a $200,000 assignment. And long story short, it ended up being over $2 million in billings, which I shared with the 9 employees I had at that time. And we broke sales records in mortgages and a bunch of other areas. In the mortgage area alone, we got over $1.8 billion in extra sales over a 1-year period beyond all of their projections. So they were pretty happy. And it amazed me that there were some people who weren't using the scripts. I hand wrote them out, dozens of pages. We practiced them in our seminars. I got super high reviews from the seminar presentations. People were making lots of money. And I had people who were just consistently struggling, not making quota. And I interviewed one young woman, a very nice lady, and I asked her, why don't you, because I'd watched her, and I said, why aren't you using these scripts? I saw she wasn't using it. People would say things like, okay, I'm going to think about it. And she'd say, okay, great, here's my business card. Call me back after you've thought about it. And she didn't even use the most basic scripts, like, what exactly do you want to think about? Or another one I gave them is very simple but very powerful is, sometimes 2 heads are better than 1. Let's think about it out loud. What do you want to think about? And I have over 30 different scripts for that one objection. I want to think about it. I've got scripts for every personality type of person. And this young lady didn't even use the most basic one. She just said, okay, call me up after you've thought about it. And I figured out what this was. What was the cause of that? And this is relevant to everyone on the webinar today because some of you are going to make a lot of money from what Eric teaches you. And some of you, if we see you 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll still be struggling. It has nothing to do with the quality of Eric's teaching. It has to do with your life scripts. Her life scripts were to be passive. Her life scripts were you don't want to be pushy. You don't want to be, what she considers pushy or aggressive is actually just being helpful, helping people by answering their questions, by helping to clarify their thinking, by educating them. But her parents taught them that us Joneses don't make waves. We're not show-offs. We're not pushy. They were, I don't remember all the details of the case, but I'm sure you've seen houses where there are signs next to the front door that say, no peddlers, no salespeople. Could you imagine going into sales and being raised in a house like that, where you're taught that salespeople are aggressive, they're pushy, they take advantage of you? How can you be successful in sales if these are the messages you're given from childhood? That's a life script, ladies and gentlemen. So I want you to study everything that Eric teaches you, all these techniques. And I've written about them in my books. Eric's written about them in his books. We've done boot camps on this, very powerful stuff. But you have to know what your life scripts are. If you really want to be happy in life, if you want to have control over your life, If you want to have better health, that our life scripts determine our health. What kind of foods were you given as a child? What kind of foods were you told that we eat this kind of food in our family, we don't eat that kind of food? You know, there are families that eat beef, that only eat beef. There are other families that, this may be for religious reasons, but they avoid pork and they avoid shellfish. I'm not saying anything's better, any diet's better than another. I just learned this morning that Prince was the great musician, was a vegan. Michael Jackson was a health nut. But other things in a life script can shorten a life tremendously. So your life scripts determine well, let's go on to the next slide, folks. I mean, this is just so transformative. It's really exciting. Let's see here. Here we go. The power of life scripts. Life scripts determine how we see ourselves and our self-image. You know, folks, everything is determined by our self-image. On the largest level, some people, unfortunately, see themselves as losers, as strugglers. They can be wonderful people, kind people, big-hearted people, buena corazon. But some of them end up homeless. I've got a friend from junior high school and high school that I've stayed in touch with all these years, and I send him money several times a year because he's not homeless, but he lives in Northern California in a trailer in a very remote rural area, and his whole life has been a tremendous struggle, and I help him out. And that comes from his life scripts. I knew his parents, wonderful people, but they gave him some messages that unfortunately hurt him, and he hasn't been open to being helped by others. How do you see yourself? What is your self-image? I'm not talking about being egotistical, but in sales, ladies and gentlemen, you have to be able to take a lot of rejection. And if you take rejection personally, you're never going to make it. You're going to want to quit after getting a couple rejections in the morning and knock off for the afternoon, or just you might physically be at the office, or you might physically be making sales calls, but you won't be putting your heart and soul into it, and you'll be much less effective. And there are other people who have, I was in a foreign country, and they had a great saying there. To be successful in sales, you have to have a hide like a rhino. You know, it takes a special, gigantic, super large caliber rifle to penetrate the thick skin of a rhino. And that's their belief. And you have to have the hide of a rhino. Well, folks, you can change your self-image by changing your life scripts. Sales scripts alone won't do it. I wish I had more time for this. Eric and I in our boot camps have covered this in great detail, the psychology of self-image. Life scripts determine what we do every day. What time did you get up today? What time do you get up on the average day? You know, there are some families where people are taught, us Joneses, we're early risers. Us Smiths, we like to sleep in late. What are you doing? What kind of sales are you doing? That's determined by your life script. I worked with, one of my clients was Toshiba Medical. I helped them sell $1 million CT scanners, MRI machines, some of the first ones in America. And what amazed me, these are technological wonders. They're just incredible engineering breakthroughs. You can take photographic images of organs inside the human body without penetrating the body. Folks, you no longer have to cut someone open to take images of their heart, their liver, their spleen. You can do it outside with these $1 million plus machines. So that was such an exciting project. I traveled all over the country working with those salespeople. I thought they would be people like electrical engineers. Some of them were not even college graduates. Hardly anyone had, I don't know if anyone had an engineering background. but they were people who were taught the technology. They were good, effective sales professionals who were willing to learn, and they had life scripts that enabled them to be very, very successful at selling these machines. What kind of selling are you doing? Why are you not doing? I want to tell you something, folks. Let me be honest with you. You know, I'm in the business of changing lives. I'm one of the few people in the country. I have a legitimate PhD in psychology, and I'm doing this work. And psychology is about helping people change. It's a science of helping people change. My specialty, I left traditional psychology, because even though I was trained in clinical psychology, because I found it to be much too slow, much too ineffective, took way too long, and for good or bad, one of my life scripts is I'm impatient, especially for my clients. I want my clients to become successful as soon as possible, with as little effort as possible, and having as much fun as possible. Well, I'm sorry, folks. I went off on a tangent. As I said, this is the first time that I'm sharing this material. I just want to share my excitement. I want to share these breakthroughs with you. Actually, I don't want to take up too much time here because I know Eric has a lot of other materials. But what I wanted to I remember the insight I want to share with you, folks. The kind of, write this down. This is such an important message. Write this down. I hope you remember this forever, because it can change your life. The kind of sales you're doing determines your income. You can be the world's best pants salesman at the Gap or at Old Navy, and you're not going to make very much money. Or, there are other forms of sales where the average income is, for example, in financial sales, financial services. I was working yesterday with a financial advisor, and the average person makes over $150,000 a year. You don't have to be a college graduate. What are your preconceptions? When you look at different kinds of sales and you ask yourself, why am I not doing that? What's holding you back are your life scripts. Somewhere along the way, someone gave you a message that that's not for people like us. That's not for people like me. That's for people who are trained as engineers. That financial planning, doing financial services sales, being a stockbroker, financial advisor, that's for people who are good with money. Folks, I've had financial planners as clients who went bankrupt. I've had real estate people, some of the folks you see on television who teach you how to get rich in real estate. I've had some of those as my clients. I helped them write their presentations. They lost everything in the real estate crash about 5 years ago. You don't have to be a real estate genius to be a great real estate trainer and make millions of dollars a year. You don't have to know a lot about the stock market. I have a guy who's a very, very successful financial planner, financial advisor. And when he was first hired, he didn't even know what an asset was. He didn't know the difference between an asset and a liability. He didn't know anything at all. They teach you that stuff. So our life scripts determine what we're going to do every day. Look at this last one, folks. Life scripts determine who we will marry, even if we will get married or not. We all know people who say, I'm a confirmed bachelor, or I'm never going to get married, or I'm never going to have children. Why do they say that? Why do they say these things? It's because of messages they got from their parents. It may have been nonverbal. Maybe they saw their parents fighting like cats and dogs. They were young, impressionable children, viciously fighting. And they said, I am never going to get married. I am not. The children talk to themselves all the time. Did you know that? It's amazing. As soon as we learn how to talk to others, we are simultaneously learning how to talk to ourselves. We can't stop it all day, even while we're sleeping all night. So the little child tells himself or herself, I'm not going to put myself through that pain. It's terrorizing for a child to see his or her parents fighting. And these people swear they will never get married. Now, some of them do get married, but when you look at people who have never been married or been married once briefly, it's people who had those life scripts imprinted in their brain at a young age. The exciting thing is, folks, using modern breakthrough psychology, we can now change our life scripts. I'm going to share some of that with you in a moment. Life scripts determine where we live. Were you given messages that us Joneses don't live in big fancy houses? That's for snobs. Us Smiths, we like the finer things in life. What were the early messages you got? You can change those messages. You can change those life scripts. Our life scripts determine the kind of work we will do, the kind of sales work in particular. I assume all of you here are in sales. Some of you I've worked with lawyers. I've worked with medical doctors who want to expand their practice, and I've worked with CPAs. Everyone is in sales. Anyone who wants to improve their business is in sales. The kind of selling you're doing is going to have a bigger impact on your income than anything you learn in sales training. You can go to any sales training in the world, but if you are selling pencils at a stationery store or selling anything in a stationery store, you're probably not going to make very much money. You need to have the strength, the courage to think bigger, to dream bigger if you want to make more money. Now, if you're happy making just a little bit of money, why is that? Put on your thinking caps, folks. I'm talking about changing your life, revolutionizing your life. If you want to, if you're happy making just a little bit of money, it's because of a life script, and you can change that. You may be happy with it. The problem is you might be married to someone or be in a relationship with someone who's not happy with it, and you may not be able to provide your children with the life experiences that they need. Our life scripts determine the kind of work we do, not just our work, but also our hobbies, our recreational interests. When I was being raised, my family, we traveled all over the country, and we went to Canada and Alaska. We went on camping trips. We would stay in hotels some nights, and we would camp out on other nights. And I grew up really enjoying camping. And as a teenager, my middle and late teens, I would go on backpacking trips with friends of mine for a week. The longest I ever went was 10 days. And it's because of the life scripts, the messages I got about nature and being connected to nature and enjoying nature and natural settings and being close to God when you're with nature. Now, did you get those messages? Did you get different messages? There are other things, I hate to say it, but I've never been to an opera in my life. It's one of my limitations. I guess I need to work on that. My parents didn't go to the opera. It's, we all have ways we can grow, things we can work on. What kind of foods do you like? That's determined by your life scripts. Families are told we don't eat this kind of food in our family. We don't eat lamb. We're vegetarian. Some families are entirely vegetarian. No, I'm not making any value judgments here, but it's determined by the early messages we got in life. Let's go on. I want to share some insights on this next slide. Let's go on, folks. Let's go deeper. The power of life scripts. Sales scripts can help you make more money, but only if you use them. As I told you the story about the woman at Home Federal Bank where I had that big project who was given, I handed over to her and other people the most powerful scripts that were making people working right next to them tens of thousands of extra dollars a year in income, and they didn't use them because their life scripts held them back. The second point, your life scripts may prevent you from using your sales scripts. So learn everything you can from Eric today. If you're still not making the money you want to make, you need to look at your life scripts. The final insight, life scripts can not only help you make more money, life scripts can help you find happiness, inner peace, and great health. Write that down in your notes. Are you happy? We can all be happier. We can all be a little happier. You know, one of the most prescribed medicines in America is Prozac. Just you add up all the different antidepressants. We are Prozac Nation. There was a book written called Prozac Nation. When you go to the grocery store, when you go to the mall, when you go to a restaurant, look around. There's probably 15% or so of the people, if not more, who are on antidepressants all around you. There are people on this call on antidepressants. And folks, there's nothing wrong with that. I've had clients who've had breakthroughs in their lives. But these can be very beneficial medicines if you have a legitimate biochemical imbalance in your body. But the truth is they're way overprescribed. And most of us, children are happy. Children are born happy. We have natural antidepressants in our body. We have serotonin. We have dopamine. We have all these wonderful, wonderful chemicals coursing throughout our body. Our body is making them right now as you listen to me. Happiness chemicals. You can mainline those. You can increase those with your changes in your scripts, your thinking. There are certain scripts that we say to ourselves that can make us miserable. And you can change that. I hope you get the sense of just how powerful this is, how exciting this is. Yes, sales scripts are great. You can influence other people, make more money. But what's more powerful than life scripts? You can enhance your marriage, your health, sleep better at night. It determines everything in our life. It's unlimited. You know, people spend fortunes going to seminars trying to change their life. They'll spend, you go to a seminar where you walk on hot coals. I actually did that several times. I had a partner who was taught how to walk on hot coals, how to put on these seminars. It was taught by the same person who taught Tony Robbins, and we did several of those. And it's very exciting, especially the first couple times you do it. But unfortunately, it doesn't really change most people's lives. You have this feeling like, oh, my life has changed. I've overcome fear. And then you go back to, let's say you're selling, and you still have the same fears. The fact that you walked on hot coals means nothing when you're up against a big old aggressive guy you're calling on who's a know-it-all, who talks in a bullying, intimidating voice. You didn't learn anything about how to change that. And so there are seminar junkies that literally, I've worked with people who have spent $50,000 to $100,000 flying all over the world going to seminars, trying to change their lives, improve their lives, overcome things that unfortunately the seminar can't help them overcome. But they're always sold by a great, great salesperson another seminar to help them change it. But they're sold these things by people that really don't understand the psychology behind human change. So I'm going to give you some of those tools. So let's go on to the next slide. The greatest breakthrough of all, we can change our life scripts. Write that down in big letters. The most exciting story of all is the story of your life. You know, we think about exciting movies that we've seen. I know Eric loves Star Wars, one of the most popular series in history. I have friends who are Quentin Tarantino fans, Robert De Niro, Meryl Streep. I mean, there's so many great movies. I love movies. And, you know, folks, as exciting as they are, what is more exciting? What's more important than the story of your life? And one of the biggest insights I'm going to share with you today, please write this down. You are the star, the director, and you see I put that in capital letters. Folks, you're the writer of the story of your life. You're writing the script right now. You rewrote the script this morning when you got up and you said, I'm going to attend Eric's webinar on sales scripting. Good for you. You took the step. You can take steps now, the really big steps, the exciting ones, to change your life scripts. And I'm not saying you have to change everything, but it's amazing. I'm going to show you just how amazing in a couple of minutes. And by the way, we're going to wrap this up in probably 7 or 8 minutes, because I know Eric has a lot of other things to cover, and I've got some other things to do today. I've got a couple clients I'm working with. But folks, you're the star. It's not Robert De Niro. It's not Meryl Streep. You're the star of the movie of your life. You're the director. You're the writer. You give yourself new lines. You give yourself new scripts, not just word scripts, but lifestyle scripts. Scripts for your health, scripts for just everything, the way you live your life, and you can rewrite the story of your life. I've been studying the history of stories recently. If I could clone myself, if I could create more time, I would write a book on, I've had chapters about the power of sales stories, but I just have so many insights into this. But the very first human communications were with stories. When you go back and study caveman drawings, what were they about? Think about that. They showed a person hunting a bison or fishing or trying to kill a bird. It told a story of action about gathering food, or a picture of someone with a loved one or a little baby. The way that children learn, as soon as they learn to talk, what do their parents do? They tell them stories, because the child is in a crib. The child is walking around, crawling around one room of the house. They're not seeing the outside world. How do we learn about the outside world? How do we learn about good and bad and evil and kindness and love? And who do we trust and who do we not trust? We learn from our parents. They tell us stories. Stories determine everything. What are the messages you were given about who you are, about who your family is? Us Joneses are not good at math. Were you given that message? You know, folks, there was actually a Mattel doll that was made in the 1960s. You look back on this, this is horrifying. It was one of those talking dolls, and you pulled the string or you pushed the button, and it said, "I'm Barbie. I don't like math." Isn't that a terrible message to give young girls? And it had other messages about just being pretty, and I wanted to make myself pretty, and very shallow, very limiting, very superficial. Well, without realizing the harm they're doing, our parents give us limiting messages. They might think they're helping us by helping us to avoid disappointment. Our friends give us messages. "Oh, Joe, don't even try to go out for the football team. You're too short. You're not big enough." And you look at the great basketball players who are relatively short. You look at the great football players who may not be built that strong. You look at some of these quarterbacks, and these are guys who are tall and skinny. They look like a strong wind could knock them over. And yet they have incredible careers, make tens of millions of dollars, bring joy to fans everywhere. I'm a big Clippers fan in basketball. Chris Paul is a short player. You know, basketball players are allowed to exaggerate their height. Their real height is frequently less than you'll see on the official statistics. But you can look it up on the internet and see what their actual height is. But he's one of the greatest players out there right now. So, folks, let's go on to the next slide here, and I just want to let you realize how artificial most of these limits are that we place on ourselves. I've used this in my own personal life, folks. I have limitations. My parents gave me messages they thought would help me, and some of them held me back. But, you know, I'm doing some very unusual work for a psychologist. 95% of all psychologists, they work with neurotics, psychotics, schizophrenics. It's very, very important work. I was trained to do that. But I've always been more interested in working with healthy, happy, successful people, helping them to become even healthier and happier and more successful. And I've always had great respect for salespeople. I worked my way through 10 years of college in sales. And so I decided to do my PhD dissertation on sales superstars. It was the first time anyone had ever scientifically looked at the linguistic patterns of great salespeople. And that's what led to my career in this field. I've been doing this for over 30 years now. Eric mentioned he's been a client of mine, a friend of mine, and a partner of mine now for 21 years. And, when I first got into this, and I left the university, I was at a major university where I earned my PhD, and I was given a graduate teaching fellowship. I actually taught 2 courses there. And my professors said, Donald, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Business is going to eat you up and spit you out. You're never going to make it in this field. It may last for a couple years, but if you leave academia, if you don't pursue this great career you have in front of you, you could be a fantastic college professor, write all kinds of books. You'll never be able to get back in. But folks, I've never looked back, and I've had a very, very exciting life, and I've got many more years of contributions to make. So I changed my life script because I was moving in that direction for the 8 or 9 years it took me to get a bachelor's degree, a master's, and a PhD. My whole life script was to become a college professor because I've always respected the world of knowledge. So knowledge truly is power. And I took a chance, and it's made all the difference in the world. But I didn't realize it at the time, but I was rewriting my life script and leaving something behind. Let's go on to our next slide. What is the first step? The first step in changing your life script is determining what your life script is. Folks, most life scripts, write this down, they're unconscious. We're not aware of them. We say, that's just the way I am. Your wife is unhappy with something you do. Your husband, your boyfriend's unhappy with something you do. And you're frustrated. People get into arguments over it. They get into divorces over this. And the other person says, that's just the way I am. And maybe they're frustrated by it. They want to change it, but they don't know how. And so they go to a $5,000 seminar they see advertised on television. People, they join certain religious groups, and religion's a wonderful thing. Folks, I'm a very religious person, and I pray every day, and it's a very important part of my life. But people join cults. They do anything. They turn to alcohol. They turn to drugs. They turn to smoking to try to deal with the stress, to change their lives. They take all kinds of antidepressants and uppers and downers, and there's speculation that Prince may have died of an opiate overdose, which is that's such a big problem in our country today. Folks, you can change your life script directly. You can. It's well within your power if you understand the technology for changing human behavior, changing human thought. But the first step is you have to know, what is your life script? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Where do those messages come from? You can start this process on your own. Go back and look at your early childhood. Don't just think about the happy times, just playing at the park, things like that. Those are enjoyable memories. But I mean, really do some analysis, because this is what's going to lead to the biggest breakthroughs of all. If you're ever going to change, this is what will change it. And you don't have to spend very much time on it. As I mentioned to you earlier in this webinar, I'm very impatient. I like to get immediate change. My belief is that the only problem with immediate change is that it takes too long. I like to get breakthroughs, and especially for my clients. And there are ways of doing that. But the first thing is to do something that most humans never do. Instead of turning on the TV, instead of just immediately looking for entertainment or sedation or getting your mind off things, just ask yourself in a gentle, friendly, loving way, how did I become the person I became? What messages did my parents give me about our family? What's our family like? And there are good and bad messages. There are always good messages. You don't have to throw out everything. Just changing a few things can revolutionize your life. And write this down. Our life scripts are formed in childhood by what our parents and friends say to us and say about us. Some of the folks I've worked with in sales, I've I've done this work with them. That's what I'm going to share with you a couple of success stories and hand it back over to Eric. We wrap this up here for today. And I've said, how did you get into sales? What opened your mind to this? And they tell me things like, people always said, even when I was in elementary school or junior high, you have the gift of gab. If you're given a message like that, it's going to increase the likelihood. You've got a special advantage that you can go into sales. But what if your friend said, you're kind of insecure. You're kind of introspective. Joey, you're not a people person. Or folks said, he's a loner. She's a loner. Or that's the way you saw yourself. Those are the messages you got. Folks, that may not necessarily be true. But if that's what you got at an impressionable age, remember this, write this down. Children are a blank slate, tabula rasa. They will believe anything that they are repeatedly presented with. It's called imprinting. I don't have the time to explain the psychology of it. I've shared it with Eric. It's led to amazing breakthroughs in people's lives when they realize the messages they were imprinted with and how it's not the truth. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Success stories in changing life scripts. I want to share with you, I'm not going to mention any names now. Some of you who have been to our boot camps know who these people are. We just did one in January this year where I shared with you their photos, their names. But I just want to share, this is not the appropriate time to do this because there may be, thousands of people on this webinar. But one of my clients went through 2 bankruptcies before I met him. And I helped him by changing his life scripts. Of course, I gave him great sales scripts, but that was not enough. I helped him change his life scripts. In his best year, folks, he brought in over $10 million. He's in life insurance sales. And I know a lot of you, your life script is that I could never do life insurance. Life insurance salesmen and saleswomen are fill in the blank, whatever word you have. They're pushy, they're boring, but I want to tell you this, folks, some of the highest income people that I've worked with in my entire career sell life insurance. It's just absolutely amazing how much money you can make. And you don't have to know anything about it. They teach you everything. But the big change came from changing his life scripts, not just learning sales techniques. This guy had read so many books, really, really smart guy. Another client of mine, the son of Mexican immigrants, whose entire family, he was raised with the belief that all of us, I'm not even going to use his surname, but all of us, we do manual labor. Some of them belonged to the union. They had better jobs, higher paying jobs. But he was one of the first in his family who went to college, didn't finish it, but he changed his life scripts. It wasn't just a matter of learning sales techniques or scripting. He changed his life scripts and makes millions of dollars a year. Never graduated from college, but that doesn't mean anything. He learned how to get control over how he sees himself, his self-image, what he does every day. It's just really remarkable. Wonderful, wonderful human being. A number of you know who this person is because I've shared this in some other programs I've done with Eric. But a guy who was a firefighter, when I met him, he was broke. The joke he tells now is that he used his MasterCard to pay off his Visa, and he used his Visa to pay off his American Express. And I helped him. I want to give him credit. He had already started to change his life scripts before I met him. And I helped to turbocharge that. He was making about $80,000 to $90,000 a year as a firefighter. And the great thing about it, when you're a fireman, is that you only work 2 to 3 days a week. He worked 9 a month. He had lots and lots of time off because that's one of the only jobs I've ever heard of where they pay you for sleeping. So he'd go to the firehouse and he would, sleep during the night. And if anyone called in with a fire or an emergency, they would go out the next day and or that night. He might be awakened in the middle of the night to put out a fire or deal with a medical emergency, take someone to the hospital. But all those hours he was sleeping, he got paid his full salary. That's just the way that it works. So he had lots and lots of time off. And he went on to make millions of dollars buying and selling houses in real estate, fixing them up, flipping them, holding on to some himself. And then to make over $10 million, he's now this client of mine, a very, very famous real estate sales trainer. He does seminars. He's all over the internet. He does seminars all over the country. And I did some work with him last year. And he told me that, and he's actually retired several times from, he retired from being a fireman at age 42, got a $100,000 a year pension, and free medical for himself and his wife the rest of his life, and then got into real estate and real estate sales training, teaching other people how to get rich with real estate, and retired after about 5 years from that. Then got tired of retirement, so went back into it, and now he's about 50 years old. And he's retired several times, but he told me that he had gone back into it for a year because when he works at it very hard. That's one of his life scripts that all of us Joneses, I'm going to say, are hard workers. So, and he's on the road a lot, and he's got 2 young children, so it's kind of hard on his family. It is hard on his family. But he made $1.8 million in 1 year. Folks, that's the power. And you combine, I wrote all of his sales scripts. I wrote the scripts for his PowerPoint. You combine sales scripts with changing life scripts. Do you see the power of this, folks? It's a beautiful Saturday. I want you to be optimistic. I want you to realize say this to yourself right now. Put your hand on your heart and say this. It's under my control. It's under my control. You don't have to look for the answer in a pill. You don't have to look for it in walking across hot coals. If you want to walk across hot coals, I encourage you to do it. Go ahead and do it. As I mentioned, I've done it several times. But, these kinds of things, weekend seminars, they can be fun. They can be enjoyable. You might pick up a few insights. But really, what changes lives is, number one, self-understanding. Understanding who we are, how we became this way, and number two, being given the tools and having a skilled guide to help you change your life, rewrite your life script. You're the star, folks. You're the director. You're the writer of the greatest story of all, the story of your life. Eric Lofholm, I've known him 21 years. God bless Eric and his wonderful family. I have seen him rewrite his life script several times. I'm very, very proud of what Eric has done with his life. He's, as you guys get to know him better, you're going to see he's a very honorable person. He really cares deeply about all of you, about his clients. He works hard for you. I want to thank you, Eric, for inviting me onto this webinar. And I'm changing my life, folks. I never used to do much of anything electronically. I was of the old school of just teaching people face-to-face, doing seminars. And I want to thank Eric because Eric has introduced me. I'm just taking baby steps right now, but he's introducing me to the world of reaching out to people electronically, like through this webinar. I look forward to doing more of these with Eric. I'm contributing my time here for free, just to help you folks. And I hope that you really take this seriously because it's made a big difference in my life and the lives of so many other people. I have clients in Australia and Switzerland and England and South America and around the United States in different fields. And some of my clients are not even in sales. They're just people that want to change their lives and massively improve their lives. It's within all of our powers to do that. So I'm going to turn it back over to Eric. Thank you all. and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and the rest of your life.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Moine, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking some time out to invest in all of us on a Saturday. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll take control back of the screen. Fantastic. Well, I want to just piggyback on a couple of the ideas that Dr. Moine talked about. He was talking about scripting from the context of